Have you been using an iPhone 16 Pro Max for the past few months? What have you made of it? And also, I'd be interested to know, what do you remember most from Apple's iPhone event last autumn? At that event, I think we got a new Watch Ultra, a supposedly new Apple Watch 10. The AirPods range were given a kind of a refresh, but the star of the show, of course, was always going to be the new iPhone 16. I remember that night particularly because I had a sponsor breathing down my neck. So the moment that the event finished, I had to get a sponsor out later that night. It proved to be a very long night, but that is another story. At this point, though, Apple is kind of doomed every time it comes round to the autumn and they release the next iPhone. They can't get it right. There's always going to be the naysayers saying nothing really has changed. There's nothing new on the iPhone. But you know what? I would kind of beg to differ. If this is the first of my videos you see, my name's David and I make videos about Apple gear, all Apple gear, every single week here on the channel. Now, if we're expecting a new phone from Apple, or putting it another way, in a slightly more sinister way, if Apple's board are expecting a new phone every year, it's going to be a law of diminishing returns at this point. We've been at peak smartphone now for the past couple of years, so I think we've got to be realistic about our expectations of what we expect. We're not back in the early or mid 2000s when there was still so much to explore. Pretty much everything that can be bought to a phone, we've now got. It's just a case of making all those small changes to make it better and better and better each year. And I have nothing against Samsung or Android whatsoever, but I bet you in just a couple of weeks' time at Samsung's Unpacked event, where we'll get the S25 Ultra and all their other phones, what will we see? We'll probably see slightly larger, slightly brighter screens. We'll get a few more megapixels thrown at the camera, and we'll get some AI, most of which won't be particularly useful, and most of which we'll forget is even there after a few weeks. But that, you see, is the nature of the beast. There isn't that much more we can expect to get on our phones. All the changes now are going to be fairly minor and fairly iterative. But I would hold court that Apple didn't deliver with the iPhone 16 last year. And this isn't just me being an Apple fanboy. There were a fair new amount of developments, albeit the minor. There were better thermals, for instance, which in turn have helped me with a better battery life. Generally now, I only charge once per day, unless I'm really hammering the camera hard. It's also worth noting that these improvements have come around in the battery life while I've been running betas. The entire lifespan of my iPhone 16 Pro Max, I've been running betas, and the battery is noticeably better, and it hasn't got warm. There have been some changes, albeit subtle, to the design as well, though, when you look at the iPhone 16. They're minor. The body's now slightly more rounded off. It's smoother and easier to hold. The edges are all just more curved. It just feels more ergonomically comfortable. And that's if you're comparing it to last year's phone, the iPhone 15. If you go back a longer way to the 12, 13 or 14, which could well be where you're trading up from to the 16, then the changes are going to be even more noticeable. The cameras, although very similar to last year, have been given a little bit of an improvement, particularly on the very popular ultra-wide angle lens. That is now a 48 megapixel unit. And there were improvements when it came to video as well. We now get 4K at 120. And also you can pause video recordings as well, which I know has been on Android for a while, but it was new to iPhone and it was a good improvement. And yes, the rollout of Apple Intelligence has been a bit of a mess. There's no getting away from it. We don't really know what we've got and how much more to expect. For instance, at the moment we have got Genmoji and Image Playground, two features that clearly were never aimed at me and that I've never even tried to use. They have no interest to me at all. The writing tools, I was hoping for good things. Sadly, they weren't for me. As you may know, I write a lot, I blog an awful lot about Apple gear. You'll find that over on Medium or my website, talkingtechandaudio.com. And I was hoping to get rid of using Grammarly and start using Apple's writing tools, but sadly, that didn't work out for me. And of course, we're still lumbered with the old dumb version of Siri as well. And the jury's out when it comes to visual lookup. I've used it on occasions, but it's too flaky. Sometimes it works pretty well and will give me decent information on the business or the building that I'm looking at. But at other times, it just doesn't give me either the right information or comes up with entirely the wrong building or business that I'm looking at. But I can see that that would be useful. But for me, the best of the Apple Intelligence tools so far has come in the Photos app with the cleanup tool. Now, I know, again, that's not new. I know Google have got it. I know Samsung have got it. But Apple's version actually works really well. Unless you begin pixel peeping, certainly for a basic image that you're putting up online, it works well. It doesn't work as well as the tools that I've got in Lightroom and Photoshop, but that's not really fair. They're professional tools and not everybody has got access to those anyway. Do you remember I asked you back at the beginning of the video, what do you remember most about the iPhone event last autumn? Think back. Apple made a big play about the mic setup on the iPhone 16 Pro and Pro Max, and it makes sense. They're hugely important. They're important when it comes to FaceTime calls, voice memos, and of course, video recordings as well. Most people, I think, recognize that the video cameras on the iPhone 16 Pro and Pro Max are probably about the best out there, so they need audio and the mics to play catch up. A few years ago, Apple completely broke the mold. They broke free from the competition when they first of all brought ProRes recording to iPhone, and then later they brought Log as well. Nobody can play catch up with that. It was an absolute game changer, and Apple is clearly trying to position these phones to be a viable alternative, a professional alternative maybe, to going out and buying a mirrorless camera. iPhone 16 has now got an extra mic. It's got 4 compared to the iPhone 15 that only had 3, and apparently it's got a lower noise floor as well. But it was the audio mix features that Apple were really trying to push home on us, on how you could make the mic setup on the iPhone 16 sound something more professional, getting nearer towards studio quality. They gave us 3 different options to try out. I've put one of my videos on in the background just to give us a little bit of ambient noise, a little bit of background noise, so you can hear how well these audio mix features work. First of all, this is in frame that you're listening to now, which is supposed to do exactly that, put me center and dead in front of you. The next setting is this, the studio mix, which is supposed to do exactly what the name suggests, put you in a studio environment and also get rid of some of the reverb in the room as well. And lastly was a cinematic mix, which is what you're listening to now. And that's clearly for noisier environments I'm in now. But the idea being, if you're recording, say, in a coffee shop or a restaurant, it's supposed to take all of the ambient room noise and put it behind you and bring my voice forward. So that's the 3 new features that Apple gave us last autumn with audio mix in iPhone 16 Pro and Pro Max. But there are always issues and problems when it comes to using noise reduction, any kind of noise reduction on audio. Very quickly, if you're not careful, it can sound quite artifacty and very unnatural. By far, the best thing to do is always try and get the best possible recording you can at source at the moment of recording. And there's another problem that I've come across with these suite of audio mix features. You can only use them with the native basic camera app on the iPhone. You can't use it with Blackmagic, and you can't use it with Apple's own Final Cut camera app either. The trouble is, as soon as you go into ProRes and Log, these features don't work, as far as I can find. Maybe I'm missing something, do let me know. But as far as I can see, you have to use a native camera app, then you have to edit the video recording, and then you can apply those different settings to them. And there is one other problem as well. You're always tied to distance. Mic proximity has always been a huge issue when it comes to good audio. The further away you get from the mics on your phone, of course, the worse the audio is going to be. But there is a workaround. And if you're enjoying this video, there's one simple thing you can do to help the channel grow this year. You know what it is, subscribe. Honestly, it does make such a difference. So just by hitting subscribe and turning on notifications will help me and this channel to grow. And the quicker it grows, the more products I can bring in front of you and review every week. I love making these Apple videos for you. Hopefully you're enjoying them. And if you are, don't forget to subscribe. It honestly makes a huge difference. Now, I mentioned there was another way of going around capturing good audio on your iPhone or even on your camera, come to that. And that is with a lav mic, a lavalier mic. You may have noticed, if you're eagle-eyed, that I've been wearing one throughout the course of this recording. I'm recording all of this on my iPhone 16 Pro Max, and I've been wearing the brand new mic from Hollyland, the Lark M2S. Now, hands up, straight away, I want to tell you this is not a paid promotion. They have not paid me to make this video. They sent me the mics to review, but they've got no editorial say over this video at all. They're not seeing it before you. They don't know what I'm about to tell you. So these are my honest thoughts after using it and wearing it and listening back to it over the past few days. This is the 5th generation of the Lark series of microphones. The idea has always been to bring good audio to everyone in a simple to use unit with as little fuss as possible while making it as user friendly as it can be. As you know, I've come from the Apple ecosystem. That's all I use all day long. So design is really important to me. Looking at the design of the case and the mics on the Hollyland Lark M2S, it's a little bit plasticky, not quite what I've been used to when it comes to Apple, but it's certainly fit for purpose. It feels rugged, it feels strong, it doesn't feel like it's going to break. It feels as if it's going to suit you well if you're out in the field using it. You don't have to be afraid of getting in and out and using it all day long. The hinges feel strong and the mics feel like they're well built. Hollyland were kind enough to send me this combo set, which costs only $139, and from the experience I've had it so far, that looks like really, really good value for money. Let's talk about the batteries first of all. The case that you see is very similar to an AirPods case. It will charge everything that's inside of it, and the case has 30 hours of battery life on it. The mics with noise cancelling turn on have about 9 hours of battery life. Now, I've not had it long enough to know if that's true or not, but all I can tell you is I've had it for around about a week now. I've been using it on and off most days, and I haven't had to think about charging. So I think the battery life looks like it's going to be okay. It's early days, but it looks like the battery life is good. Along with my kit, there was also some cables in the box as well. There was a USB-C to Lightning, a USB-C to USB-A, a TRS to TRS 3.5mm cable if you want to use that with a camera. But there was one cable missing, which was a dedicated USB-C to USB-C. Surely that is the future. And the fact that the case has got a USB-C put on it was a real shame that we didn't have a dedicated cable in the kit with it. It means I've got to use a third-party cable. So Hollyland, if you're listening, I think adding in a USB-C to USB-C cable would be a sensible addition. The audio that you've heard through the course of this video so far, and will be hearing for the rest of the video, is all native, straight from the mic. I haven't touched it at all. It's got noise cancelling turned on, but I haven't done anything in post. I haven't done any de-essing, I haven't done any compression, I haven't done anything to it. So this is exactly as you would hear the audio if you went out and bought yourself this Lark M2S today. Turning noise cancellation on and off is really, really simple. All I'd have to do is to press that button. You get a blue light on the receiver that I can see in front of me showing that the noise cancelling is off, and it's as simple as that. There is an app on the phone as well that you can set various levels of noise cancelling to, but we'll cover that a little bit later on in the video. But that's with noise cancelling off, and that is now with noise cancelling back on. The setup was incredibly simple, much simpler than I was possibly fearing. You know what it's often like with Bluetooth things, you have to fiddle around in settings to get things to pair. The minute I opened the case up, took out the receiver, took out the transmitters, the mics and the receivers, it was perfect. It just paired first time. I've never had to touch it. Really, really super simple setup. And if you're using the mics with your iPhone, there is a LarkSound app that you can download that I mentioned just a moment ago. And it gives you the option of noise cancelling, volume adjustment, mono or stereo recording, and scheduling a power off time should you want it as well. It'll also show you how much charge you've got left on your lav mic and whether you want to use your iPhone as a speaker as a playback monitor. So that app is really worth downloading. But of course, you can only use that app if you're recording onto your iPhone, which I am at the moment, and I am using that app. Setting up the receiver on the Canon was equally as simple. All you need to do is make sure, first of all, to turn down your camera's volume as much as possible, and then increase the volume or the gain on the receiver that you get with Lark. There's 3 settings on there, and once you've got the gain that you want, you can just lock it. If you need a little bit more volume, you can always then increase it in the camera itself. The Lark receiver sits in the cold tube mount on your camera, and it connects up to your camera via the supplied 3.5mm TRS to TRS cable that I mentioned a few moments ago. One of the big changes you'll clearly notice is the design. It's so much smaller, if that's possible, than the previous design. Where you used to have that disc that used to kind of drag shirts down and collar lines down, and it became quite obvious. Once you see it, you couldn't unsee it. With this, I don't know if you noticed it before I pointed it out to you, but it's now just a tiny little clip that faces outwards from the shirt that you're wearing. It really is so discreet, and it's even lighter, so there's less drag on the clothes as well. The previous one was a hefty 9 grams. This is now down to 7 grams, and honestly, it's really simple to wear. Closed collars, or even on the peak of a cap, I guess you could wear it, but it's really unobtrusive. When it comes to the audio, it records in 48K, which is lovely, but it only records in 24-bit. It would be nicer in this day and age of 32-bit float if we could record in that, which means that clipping is virtually impossible. So again, Hollyland, if you're listening, maybe that's something that you can bring along with the next iteration of these mics. But also the noise cancelling I just wanted to mention. Very often noise cancelling can sound quite aggressive, but on here it sounds pretty natural. So far I've been impressed by it, and I think I would actually, even in a treated studio as I'm in now, I would tend to leave it on most of the time. It doesn't sound too aggressive, doesn't sound odd, which it can often do with audio. And a giveaway to that is when you look at audio, the waveform. If you look at the waveform, you can see what a nice waveform looks like. It should look nice and open with some peaks. Yes, I could compress those a little bit, but basically that is a lovely waveform that you're seeing straight out of this mic, and it actually looks decent. You know, when you look at that waveform, you're going to get decent audio. And what are you thinking of the audio so far? Of course, the beauty of wearing a wireless mic like this is the freedom that it gives you. Even when I'm in the studio recording my normal videos for you, I have to sit fairly close to the desk, fairly close to the camera to make sure that I'm close to the shotgun mic that sits above me, just out of frame. But with this, I can get up and I can move as far away as I want to, of course, from the camera, and it's not going to have any kind of issue at all. Where these come into their own, of course, is when you decide to step away from the studio. And I did that earlier on today. I went across the road about 30 meters initially, away from the studio, and began recording. I didn't know what the results were going to be until I got back, but I was pleasantly surprised. But this is what it sounds like around about 30 to 80 meters away from the iPhone and, of course, the receiver. Of course, it's when you're out of range and away from your phone or your camera that these mics really should come into their own. And I reckon I'm probably about 25 to 30 meters away from my iPhone at the moment. I'm standing right by main road. There's not much wind today. I'll give you an idea of what the reception's like from this distance. If I turn my back and walk away, now obviously I'm breaking the direct line of contact between the mic and the phone at the moment, but I'm just walking away from it, I suppose, for a distance of approaching maybe 100 meters, and it's not until I get back that I'll know whether we've got any reception or not, and also giving these a really good road test to see what the mic quality is like outside, away from the studio, and standing right by a road. So I'm probably around about 80 to 100 meters away from the phone now, and with my back to it. And if I now walk back towards it, facing it, hopefully that's still picking up. I say, I won't know how good these are until I get back into the studio and listen back to what I've just recorded. When I get back up to the position that I started at, I'm going to then switch over to no noise cancel on this mic, and then I'll switch mics and I'll put a mic on that's got the dead cat on it, so you can hear the difference that makes with any kind of wind noise and noise reduction. So I'm back to that starting place now. If I switch off the noise cancelling on the mic, right, so that's now with noise cancelling turned off. You can't see me because there's a van in the way of us, but there you go. So that's now with noise cancelling turned off, standing by the side of the road. You should get an idea now of the difference that makes. I'm going to switch over mics now and put on a mic with a dead cat on, but with noise cancelling on as well. Standing in the same position by the road, but with a dead cat on, so that should cut out a little bit more noise and still hopefully be good audio. So get back in the studio now and let's hear what we've recorded. So final thoughts after a week or so of using it. First of all, the audio is really pleasing. Yes, I could improve it slightly in post, but that's not the point of this video. The point of this video is to let you hear what the Lark M2S sounds like natively, and I've been fairly impressed with it. Of course, its biggest calling card is the freedom it gives you. Is it as good as my studio mic? Will I use this all of the time? No, probably not. But then again, it's a fraction of the cost of the other mics I've got in this studio. Yes, it would have been great if those audio mix features that Apple gave us were the answer, and they help a little bit, but there's always going to be that issue of mic proximity. All of those features only work if you're near enough to the microphone on the iPhone, but with this solution, of course, distance really isn't a problem. And not only has it made my iPhone more usable now, it's made my Canon more usable as well. Suddenly, my Canon has become a running gun setup if I want to. The mic on the Canon and on most cameras really is pitiful, but now with this Lark M2S, it's not a problem anymore. I can record audio and video directly to the Canon and the SD card. I've already mentioned a couple of the problems that I've encountered since I've been using this Lark M2S. They're not huge, but a couple. One of those was the fact, of course, that you can only record in 24-bit, not in 32-bit float. So Hollyland, if you can alter that next time around, that would make us audiophiles even happier and supply a USB-C to USB-C cable. Also, when I was out recording early on, I had a dead cat on one of the mics, one of the windshields on the mics. I came back and of course, I just wanted to put it straight in the case to charge up, and you couldn't. You have to take that off. If there was some way that they could maybe make more space, fraction more space in the case, that you could leave the dead cats on or have some sort of storage in the case, at least put one of the cables in there, it'd be great. As it is at the moment, you have to carry around all those extra cables and the dead cats in the carry bag they give you. So if they could just slimline that, that would be really handy. The other problem that I came across was that you've got a port on the receiver that goes onto the iPhone that you can charge your iPhone up to while you're using it. That's great. That's really handy. But what I wanted to do in this video was record in ProRes Log. Now, if you've tried recording ProRes Log, you'll know the files are huge. You would never think of recording those directly to your iPhone. They are enormous. So I was hoping to put my Samsung T7 drive into that port and record in ProRes Log direct to the SSD as I normally do, but you can't do that. You can only charge the phone through it. So again, if there's some way that we could open up that port to be able to take in an SSD as well, that would just make this system even more versatile. But overall, my experience of using this Lark M2S over the last few days has been nothing but positive. I was expecting the audio to be really thin and tinny and having to do loads of work in post to make it sound good, but it doesn't. It sounds good straight out of the box. Now, I mentioned Hollyland haven't paid me to make this video at all. They sent me the mic to review, but they haven't paid for it. If you want to help support the channel, there is an affiliate link in the description. So if you're thinking of buying yourself a Lark M2S, using that affiliate link will just help me out a little bit. And if you want to know more about my thoughts on the iPhone 16 and how I found using it over the past few months, there's a video on screen that will tell you all about that.